Well, if I were a smarter man, I suppose I'd review this movie right before Glass came out. But I saw Unbreakable again. I want to talk about Unbreakable, so let's talk about Unbreakable. Unbreakable. So Unbreakable was written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan. It came out in the year 2000 when Shyamalan was on this crazy ride. This man was said to be the next Spielberg. Did something happen along the way? Hopefully he's getting back on track. But personally, I think Unbreakable might just be his masterpiece. A movie that was truly ahead of his time. So Bruce Willis plays David Dunn. He's a man who was in a train wreck, and he is the only survivor of this train wreck. In fact, he's remarkably unharmed. He's then approached by a man named Elijah Price, played by Samuel L. Jackson, who has osteogenesis imperfecta. It's a bone condition where your bones are very brittle and they break very easily. He believes that if he is on this end of the spectrum, could there then be a person on the other end of the spectrum who does not break, who is very tough? He believes David Dunn is this person. In fact, he believes David Dunn is a superhero. Or at least he believes comic books are a representation of the truth, exaggerations of the truth. And so that's the movie. Is Bruce Willis's character a superhero? Is Elijah Price going to be like the Alfred to the superhero? Is Bruce Willis discovering how far this goes? And simply put, this movie's remarkable. It's well directed. Yeah, M. Night Shyamalan movie was well directed. Folks, it happened all the time back then. Bruce Willis, he's so somber in this movie. His marriage is down in the dumps. He's depressed. He doesn't want to go to work. It's also represented in the color and contrast in the movie too. A lot of blue, a lot of gray, a lot of purple. Because Sam Jackson knows how to dress. But it is touched on in the movie. It's like, if you're this depressed and miserable, maybe you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Samuel L. Jackson was also great. The first real scene you get of him is when this guy is buying this art piece. And by art piece, I mean comic book cover art piece. And he just flips his shit on this guy because this guy's buying it for his kid. He's like, this is an art gallery, my friend, and this is a piece of art. It was really funny because back in 2000, eccentric adults buying a lot of expensive nerd shit, that was weird. Today it happens a lot more. But anytime you can give me a path of discovery based on intrigue, because like as Elijah Price told David Dunn in this movie, is like if someone was like you, if they are unbreakable as I think you are, they probably wouldn't know it. It is true. You're like, I guess they wouldn't. I mean, I could be invincible. I've never broken a bone ever. Knock on wood. With sound effects, we can make anything happen. That's a digital knock on wood, it counts. But it's done in such a believable way, but you never feel like this guy is actually invincible. It's done in the spectrum of believability, or at least spectrum of possibility. He never feels like Superman. In fact, I don't know the depths of how invincible Bruce Willis actually is, or his character actually is. Bruce Willis, we know, he's invincible as hell. He's done that movie and he still gets jobs. Invincible. In fact, he is unbreakable. Which makes you reflect, what am I good at? What talents might I have that I don't know I have because I've never been in the position or situation to find out I can do that? Maybe you can sing, maybe you can write, maybe you are great at drawing, but you might not know because you've never done it or tried. At which point the movie then does what I really love it when a movie can do, cause self-reflection. It's not until a certain point in the movie that you actually stop and you're like, this is a superhero movie. It's not executed that way. In fact, the trailer, you didn't know what this movie was about. All we knew was the guy who wrote and directed The Sixth Sense is making a movie where Bruce Willis lives through a train crash. What is it? Is it a ghost movie? Is he dead again? We don't know. I remember watching it with my dad. I rented the movie after it came out. I was like, Dad, you gotta see this movie. So we watched it, and at a point he goes, he's a fucking superhero. It was so great seeing him reach that realization. The movie does a good job at you rooting for everybody in this movie. You're rooting for Bruce Willis to find his place and gain happiness. And you're rooting for Elijah Price to be right about him. Funny thing though, when I was watching it this time, I was like, if this was a world where this guy was like hounding me thinking I was some sort of superhero, he'd be remarkably annoying. At any point, you have some guy you've never met, you have a meeting with once, you're like, okay, whatever, bye. He shows up at your work and then he starts hounding your wife. I'd be like, the restraining order's in the mail, man. You're kind of weird. It's really like What About Bob? We're rooting for Bob because it's What About Bob and it's Bill Murray and we love him, he's lovable. But if we were in the position of Dr. Leo Marvin, we would understand. Dude, this is also proof that Samuel L. Jackson can play a more introverted, reserved, intellectually soft-spoken or inquisitive type of character. He doesn't always have to shout. In fact, there's a bit of Mace Windu I see in Elijah Price in this movie. Granted, this was after The Phantom Menace came out, but although he was more reserved than a Samuel L. Jackson-ish character usually is, you still always felt his passion. That's the important part. Never mistake energy with passion. They are not the same. And the soundtrack in this movie, the Unbreakable theme is one of those great themes of the 21st century. I can listen to that thing 100 times over. The first note comes on, I recognize recognize it immediately. James Newton Howard did such a good job in the soundtrack of this movie. It's such a somber tone that also inspires hope. It's a hopeful and depressing tune. Kind of like this movie, really. Guys, I don't want to talk about this movie too much because in the off chance you haven't seen Unbreakable, you totally should. This movie was truly ahead of its time. I didn't recognize that until recently, until the recent comic book movie genre boom that happened. You make this movie in the year 2000, it's a passion project. Just this little thing that Shyamalan wanted to do, I suppose. It would connect with some moviegoers, but not the majority. Majority of people didn't watch comic book movies when this movie came out. It's a very narrow market they were going for. The movie, after all, is 18 years old. That means if someone was born when this movie came out, they are graduating high school now. I feel like Unbreakable is the inevitable end game, the wrap around for comic book movies and where they're gonna go. You already see certain studios try to do different things with comic book movies. At a point, they're gonna be like, okay, we've seen realistic before, you know, Batman Begins. There was a super realistic-ish take on Batman. Let's take it to the next level. Make it almost look like it's not a superhero movie at all. And then you can be like, yeah, Unbreakable did that because it was ahead of its time. So I look back and I'm like, that movie is more relevant now than it was back then. It's so great when a movie you liked back in the day has aged like a fine wine. I was so pleased watching Unbreakable again recently. And I will say Unbreakable is awesome-tacular. I would love to hear in the trailer for Glass audio of Elijah Price's mom giving her monologue about the soldier villain and the arch villain. I'm not gonna break the trailer for Glass if it doesn't have it, but I think that would just be wonderful. All right, guys, so Unbreakable, have you seen it? What did you think about it? And has your perception of Unbreakable changed between when it came out and now? Whatever you think, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.